Here, so if anyone wants to get closer, you can come up, sit up here. That's where you get voted in to do jobs. I know Joel Charles is quite interested right now. So. Anyway, folks, we'll get started here. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm pleasantly surprised at the numbers. We were a little concerned we wouldn't have as many people, but it's nice to see you all here. I'm not going to speak very much here because we have another man who's going to do that for us. So I'd like you all to sit back, enjoy, and keep your questions till the end because we will have a Q&A at the end of the ceremony. There is coffee and water, I believe. There's booze, but you can't have any of that. Booze, not food. But anyway, I'll get Doug to come up. Doug Griffiths, he's the man with 13 ways. He's going to give you a presentation tonight, and I've been through these with him. They're quite interesting. And like I say, at the end of the program, there will be a question and answer period. So let's have a good round of applause for Doug Griffiths. Thank you.
All right. How are you all this evening? It is so great to see so many people turn out. You know, the first indication whether or not a community is going to be prosperous or successful is the number of people that turn out. Unless you're all mad, then no. No, I'm just joking. If you guys like this, this is all the work of council. If you don't like it, it's my work. That's the way this works as a consultant. This is a lot like church or high school, because man, people, more chairs in the back, but there's lots up here. Free to come in, and I won't pick on anybody. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight, you might have been here before when I did 13 ways to kill your community, that presentation. I am going to do a shorter presentation, and it's a new one. You're only the second people to ever see it, so bear with me. 13 pathways to success, because of course 13 ways to kill your community is about the things we do wrong. The pathways to success are actually about the way the world is changing, how communities are succeeding, what they're doing. And I think it is incredibly important to get a gist of this before we talk about the strategic plan, because your council and your administration came together and worked incredibly hard on this strategic plan, and it reflects some of these ideas and the potential that the community of Virden has to be prosperous in the future, okay? So, ready? Great. 13 pathways to success. Number 1, broadband and high-speed internet. It is so critically important to the future, and I know that a few years ago I would talk about this, I'd present this, I'd talk about why we needed broadband and high-speed internet, and people would look at me and go, oh, Doug, it's not that important. And then the pandemic hit, and we all saw how you could do more healthcare online, how education was online, we shopped more online. Even when we shopped locally, we shopped more online. And if I wrote another 13 ways to kill your community, the first one is don't have good quality or quantity of water. If I wrote another 13 ways to kill your community, I would have don't have high-speed internet or connectivity, because it's so foundational to every single thing that we did. Now, there's something you need to understand though. You cannot just go preach that you need to have high-speed internet, broadband connectivity. That is like a hotel now saying, hey, we're bed bug free. You kind of expect it. The question is not anymore about whether or not you're going to have this resource and it's a pathway forward. The real question is, what are you going to do with it? Do you offer exceptional education in conjunction with your local school board? Do you offer advanced healthcare treatments, the likes of which no one has ever seen? Do you market your own main street, your businesses, to communities all around the region? What are you going to do with it? Because that's the story that attracts people to your community. Not, hey, I have broadband. Hey, do you know what we do with the broadband, the industries we've attracted, the businesses we've attracted, the jobs that we've created, and the quality of life we offer for our people? That's a pathway forward. And if you've ever seen young people these days, I know none of you have, they're always online with everything all the time. They need this. The second pathway forward starts with knowing yourself. I can't emphasize how important this is. And this is important for the strategic plan that you're going to see, because it is not a strategic plan like everybody else has. Most communities try and be like everybody else. I was telling a couple of people this evening that I ask communities, what are you going to do? Where are you going to invest your time and energy? What kind of business and industry are you going to attract? You know what? This is weird because I work with a lot of small municipalities all around North America. You know what the number 3 answer is? Unmanned aerial vehicles. And I say, oh, that's how you're going to do economic development. You're going to grow your community. I'm like, so where's the airport? And half the time they look at me and go, well, we don't have an airport. Well, how the hell are you going to do unmanned aerial vehicles? You need to know what really makes you unique, what your competitive advantages are. Don't try and be something you're not. You need to be who you are, just be really, really damn good at it. And that's the second pathway forward. Main Street and downtown rebirth. Now, you've heard me talk about this before, I'm sure. The challenge we have is that a lot of our communities still look like they were designed in the 50s. Right? In the 50s, we didn't have suburbs and subdivisions, so we had businesses on Main Street that were, warehouse department store size. Because you had to have that much space to sell all your products and to store it in the back, and then everyone lived on the floor up above it. And then we changed the world by inventing suburbs and subdivisions, so everyone moved out of town. And what we're left with on most of our main streets are these warehouse-size buildings. But most people that need businesses, whether they're small retail businesses or they're service businesses, don't need the same space. They don't need the same size. And so most of our downtowns, I've had communities say, I know, I walk downtown and it looks rough. Those old buildings aren't very useful. No one's going to want to buy it because you can't renovate it, you can't heat it, you can't fix it, and it's still too much space, so I know it's bad. And I say, great, what are you going to do? And almost every single one of them looks at me and says, well, we're going to wait for a business to show up and buy it and tear it down and build something new. And my first response is, why would anyone else invest in your Main Street if you're not going to invest in your Main Street? There are communities from Kenora, Ontario, Harrison, all over North America that we've seen that have redeveloped their main streets. And I bring up Kenora, Ontario as an example because when they reinvested in their main street to beautify it, they put in trees, they put in twinkle lights, they painted, they beautified. There was a mass revolt from people in the community who said, this is a stupid investment, it's never going to work, it's never going to pay off. Now, Kenora is well known as having a destination main street. People go down there on purpose. They come from all over to go to Kenora to experience downtown because they have micro shops and clothing stores and ice cream shops, and it's a place you want to hang out. Young people these days don't want to live in the suburbs like we did. They don't need a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage. In fact, because of broadband, they're so busy on the internet, they've discovered, and given the pandemic, that they can work and live anywhere. They can live over there and work remotely, and so they're excited about finding a place they really want to live in. And many of these communities are adding housing into their Main Street mix to keep the businesses viable. So another pathway forward. Now, I just need to remind you, you don't need to do all of these, just do one of them really well, and it will help. But Main Streets now, rebirths are attracting people from all over. Number 4, because I mentioned housing on Main Street, this is the next one, housing diversity. Again, young people aren't looking necessarily for the 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2-car garage that we had. In fact, younger generations are saying they can't afford it. There is a battle brewing between folks my dad's age and folks my kids' age because they all wanted the big suburb house and the younger folks can't afford it. And because all we do is build suburbs anymore, we're pricing everyone out of the market. You can't tell me you haven't heard about the Generation Z or millennials and their inability to buy a house. And in fact, most of them don't necessarily even want to buy a house. This whole notion, it's a US example, model, of the white picket fence. A lot of younger people don't necessarily, did I move it? I did, sorry. A lot of younger people don't necessarily want that white picket fence dream and vision. They want to be on a Main Street in a 1, 2, or 3-bedroom condo that they could rent or buy, and they plan on being more mobile. And so they want to walk down to the yoga studio or the coffee shop or the brew pub, and then if a job comes along and they need to move somewhere else in 3 years, they plan on doing that. They plan on being more mobile because that's how they've grown up. But housing diversity and availability is the best way to address affordability. I was in a community, and I said, you guys need affordable housing. And that community looked at me and said, are you kidding? Those people don't mow the lawn. They have too many dogs. They have too many kids. They're going to ruin our community. I don't want affordable housing. Except it's not just affordable housing you need. It's a diversity of housing. You're trying to attract older people who are semi-retired or retiring. There are older people that never had kids that want to rent instead of buy. There are old people who had kids, and now one of those kids got divorced and moved back, so they need a bigger place, but they still want to rent instead of buy. Younger people that will never have kids. Younger people that have older kids. Older people that still have young kids. You need housing diversity in order to attract a workforce. And if you're going to grow your population, you've got to recognize just suburbs that have the 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2-car garage is not what everybody wants anymore. That might be what nobody wants in the future. I don't mean to sound glum. They say to many people, if you're only building suburbs, you're building the slums of the 21st century. You're building places that will be vacated and no one will want to be there. So housing diversity and affordability integrated with your businesses. Number 5, beautification and visitation. We did a survey across Canada for where people lived. Not where they wanted to live, where they currently live. And we took out all the people who lived in their hometown and never left. And we took out all the people who moved to the biggest city nearby because they just moved to the biggest city. So in your case, it would be Regina or Winnipeg. We took those people out. And we took everybody else and asked them, why do you live where you do? 31% of them said it was because of a tourism experience. And most of them, it was an accidental tourism experience. Harrison, if you're on Instagram, anyone on Instagram? Yeah, okay, I can tell who's on and who's not, mostly by the color of the hair. Just showed me, my son said to show me how to get on too, right? So, Harrison, look up Harrison Rising and follow them. They started off saying, look, we're outside of Toronto about an hour and a half. No one's coming here because it's too far away. What are we going to do? The towns were dying. There's 3 of them in Harrison, in that county, and they were all dying. And they said, well, let's start with beautification. So in one community, they challenged all the business owners to decorate their door one weekend. Beautify, just the doorway. And they did. And they went around and took pictures of each of them as they went along. And then once a week, they post a new picture. And it started to go viral because these were beautiful doors. They've done a really good job. They painted around them. So at Halloween, decorated them with pumpkins. Valentine's Day, decorated them with heart. Whatever they did. It wasn't tacky, but it was beautiful. And it changed the story. And then, in fact, they had a few people who were following them on Instagram who started to come out from Toronto to visit them. And so the other community captured their old railway train that was there. And the other one captured their ice cream stores, which were there. They had 2 ice cream stores. Now they have 5, I think. And in fact, it got so busy that in one of those communities that did the door visitations, they marketed that they were available and open for Christmas, and that they were now piping Christmas music down Main Street at Christmas, and they had beautified all of Main Street. You couldn't find a place to park. You could barely find a place to walk. There's no vacant spaces for a business to open in that community anymore. Because they beautified, which led to visitation, and the visitation led to economic prosperity. Just pick a way. This is the 5th way. Number 6, entrepreneurship and small business. I get so frustrated that every single community, except this one, because they were amazing, every single community I've ever worked with says, oh, we want to do economic development. And the first thing they do is think, what industry are we going to attract? That worked great when my parents' generation used to move to where the jobs were, and the jobs were there because the business located there, because they had the lowest taxes and the least regulations. And then we couldn't keep up, so all those industries moved overseas and to other countries, and now we don't have those jobs. The lowest taxes and the least regulations are not actually what are driving economic development in communities anymore. It's all the other things I've just talked about. Plus, if we want to do economic development, why are we always trying to find some international conglomerate to come and open a business in our community? Most of our communities are plumb full of young entrepreneurs that are doing all sorts of amazing things if they got a little bit of encouragement. There is a community here in Manitoba. I don't know if they still do it now, but in order to get their young entrepreneurs more engaged, the Chamber of Commerce and the Town Council joined together to create a micro-lending fund for small entrepreneurs, for young entrepreneurs, to start small businesses. And it worked. Young people said, I'm going to try, I'm going to experiment. They also had a mentorship program to help those young business owners not just invest, but when they failed, because if any of you have ever been in business, you know you're bound to fail once or twice, so that they kept going, and it worked like a charm. That community doubled its population over the 20 years that they worked on that. And here, I mean, if we just judge this community by the number of people that have small business licenses or members of the Chamber of Commerce, we wouldn't know maybe a smackerel of the number of people that actually do business. Think of all the opportunities for home-based businesses that are in this community right now that could locate on Main Street if they grew a little bit and had a little bit of support. Small business, entrepreneurship and small business is a pathway forward. It's a pathway to success. Just be really damn good at it. Number 7, socialization and events. There are communities, I don't even remember which one I thought I would tell you about. Let's go with Elk Rapids. That community focuses on having events on Main Street every single weekend. And they have 4 seasons: winter, fall, spring, and summer. I still don't know why. You know, we live in a country that has 9 months of winter and the rest is just really damn poor skiing. But we focus on events that run in the summers and not tackling the opportunities to be a winter city. If you look at Finland and Sweden and Norway, those countries have mastered winter events, and people go there for winter events. We seem to have shame in the fact it's cold and snowy here when it's something we can celebrate and capitalize on instead of just focusing on summer events. And so they focus on bringing people downtown to that community for events. Now, there was a community that we worked in, and we suggested this community was about 12,000 people outside of a big city of 1.1 million people. And that community, they pitched it to us just before we started working there and said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have an event down here. We're going to shut down Main Street, 3 blocks of it, and we're going to invite people from the fringes of this city to drive out here. It's not very far, to come out for a Saturday shopping event, a fair. They had bonfires on the street, not they were setting fires to cars. That's not all Maple Leafs fans. Okay, that wasn't. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm cheering for the Oilers now. I'm just making fun of them. I also have a Jets jersey, though, just for the record. I'm sorry, it's not out. And so they were going to work on attracting people out. Now, I told them, you got to measure before, you got to measure after to see what you get. And they had about 300 people every Saturday on Main Street. In a regular event, they told me, almost 13,000 people on one Saturday with that event. And they didn't do it again. Because the people on Main Street, some of the business owners said, no, people have to be able to park in front of my business, so they couldn't do it again. They actually shut it down. And yet, most of the restaurants and all the other businesses were excessively profitable for that Saturday, and they said it got them through some pretty hairy months. Socialization and events bring people to your community, again, especially for those coincidental tourism opportunities, and they can, if you do it right, you can explain to them that not only can you visit here, you could live here. After this pandemic, my dad died a little over a year ago. In the midst of the pandemic, we couldn't have a funeral for him. It took him from January until September before we could. Now the town told me, you know what? We're going to have a homecoming, bring everyone back. Because you know how many people couldn't come to your dad's funeral or the other 40 some odd people that died during the pandemic? And we all want to grieve together, and we want to mourn, and we want to gather. So we're going to have a homecoming, and we're going to have a little bit of a celebration of life for the people that we lost during the pandemic. Lots of communities are doing that. Every community at some point has a homecoming. I always point out, you're missing the biggest value you have of a homecoming. All these people who used to be in your community come home, they go to a dance, they get drunk, and then they go back to wherever they're from. Why not showcase your community? Show them what space is on Main Street, what businesses your community needs, the value of your housing, the opportunities in your schools. They're all, some of them, looking for an excuse to come home, but we never do a sales pitch. And so when you do the socialization and events, please make sure that you do an ask after. Make sure you have in your mind that, hey, you know what? This is your third time coming. Did you know you could live here? You don't have to just visit here. It's most people's dreams. Number 8, cooperation and collaboration. You'll note that this one is the same as from 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. I have one on don't collaborate, don't cooperate, because I think this is the most quintessential thing that either breaks the community if you fail or helps the community if you work together. It does. Everywhere I've been around North America, we have clients from Alabama to Alaska. I have had people say to me, we're not working with those people next to us, and yet I've watched the ones that do work together be incredibly successful. And you've seen it in businesses all the time. If you go furniture shopping, I guarantee you into Winnipeg or into Regina, you'll see the furniture stores conglomerate around each other. Because if you're going to look for a couch, they want you to be able to go see all the couches. We had an example in Edmonton of a furniture store that said, no, there's too much competition here, and they moved across the city, and they went broke within months because no one wanted to drive all the way across the city to see one more couch. We worked in a community just outside of a city of about 130,000 people, and they had 3 brew pubs. And it was beautiful. They even had a couple more locations. We did a whole Main Street design for them, suggestions. Even went through and said, 2 more brew pubs in these 2 locations will be perfect. And here's the conference center, here's a hotel. And the other 3 brew pubs, even though we consulted with them, said they wanted to talk, so I went to see them. And after we were done talking, they had said, Doug, we already have 3 brew pubs. We're only 7,800 people. I know there's a big market in that community of 120, 130,000, but that's too much competition. We don't have room for 2 more. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what they said in Nashville, Tennessee, with the 3 live music venues, right? In fact, our survey said, our research showed that people who were in that city went out to that community because they were locally owned brew pubs for locally owned food and locally owned beer. They were tired of the chain restaurants in their city, and that there was a bigger market to grow it. And after we showed them the evidence, they bought into it, and all sorts of amazing things are happening. But we have this sense that we don't need to collaborate and cooperate. In fact, it's competition and it's bad, when in fact, it works incredibly well. I was in Prince Edward Island. I love that little province. 135,000 people there. And I was looking at a brochure, because PEI has 2 of the world's top 10 golf courses. It's amazing. And there were 3 golf courses, 2 of them the top 10, on this brochure. And I looked at my friend Paul, who was there showing me around, and I said, why would they do that? Aren't they competing? And he said, there's only 135,000 people here. There isn't enough to keep these golf courses going. So we need to draw people in, but we also recognize no one is coming all the way to PEI for 1 golf course. But if you can do 3 or 4 golf courses in a week-long tour, you got them. They grow the pie. And that's what collaboration and cooperation are about growing the pie. Not competing and trying to fight for scraps from the table, but about growing the pie by working better together. That is definitely a pathway forward. Number 9, technology and innovation. Now, I don't mean high-speed internet and connectivity. I mean by focusing on technology and innovation. Have any of you heard of the community Beaumont outside of Edmonton? It's a great community, yeah. It's got their stop signs are in English and in French, and it actually has a very small French population, but it's a very diverse community with a lot of different populations. Now, they hired an amazing CEO there who said, I'm going to do something different. And he wanted to pilot an autonomous vehicle. So they had, and I don't have a picture of it with me, but a little pink bus that about 8 people could get on with no person driving. They made a lane in town from each neighborhood that would bring people in downtown to events and drive them back out, and it was free. I forget what they called her too, it was a really cute name. And it was pink, you can look it up on the internet. Now that was cool. I asked him about it and he said, no, we were trying to be innovative and trying to do something, but he never anticipated what would follow. They get calls from all over the United States, from tech companies that say, hey, we saw what you did with that autonomous vehicle. We recognize you're brave enough to try and do something innovative. Can we come and test our product with you? Like, we'll build a factory there if we start to make them or we start to run them. And now they have more technological innovations coming to that community, not all municipally based, because they know that community has set itself apart and branded itself as a technology and innovation-focused community. That, because everything is changing, is remarkable. I always suggest to communities, have you thought about the opportunity to partner with your school for a robotics program? Have you thought about partnering with your hospital or your healthcare board about something innovative with healthcare? Instead of waiting for a provincial or federal government to hand it to you, go get it. Yeah, I know people are going to say no when you can't do it. To hell with them. Keep pushing until you get through, because that's how you set yourself apart from so many other communities waiting for something to come and change the way they are. Number 10, community neighborhood feel. Again, this isn't housing and this isn't Main Street. This is an attitude. Every single community is made up of sub-communities. I'm in multiple communities. I'm in a community with consultants. I don't like any of them, but I'm there whether I like it or not. I'm in a community of dads who have a boy that plays soccer. I'm also in a community of dads who have a boy that is a fantastic artist. I'm also in a community of people with small dogs that walk around our town, on our streets. We've got lots of walking trails in my tiny little community of Ardrossan, and I don't know any of the people's names, but I know their dogs' names, and they know my dogs' names, right? So I'm in all sorts of communities. If you're new to a community, it is so hard to break in. Now, we're all friendly, but we're not necessarily welcoming. Friendly means someone asks you where to go, you give them directions. Sometimes even driving down the street, we wave at them accidentally because we thought there was somebody else, right? We've all done that. I actually deliberately wave at everyone in my community, whether I know them or not, and it's got contagious. Everyone waves at everyone now. And we even have it's not this, it's actually this. It's like the Forrest Gump wave, and people laugh. And it's become a thing in our community. Well, think about how you can break down some of those barriers and become really friendly, really welcoming, and a real neighborhood. Start to design neighborhoods instead of subdivisions. Places where people socialize. In my community, every other weekend, we put on, I have a wood-burning fire pit, and I bring it out onto the street, and I got all the permissions after a couple of times, and they gave me hell. I got all the permissions from the local government, and so everyone knows on Sunday, we have a little hot dog party. I bring the hot dogs, I bring the buns, they bring their own alcohol, and all the kids come out. Every single day, I'm like, okay, we're starting at noon, we'll be done by 2. I got to put that thing out with a fire hose at 6 o'clock because I'm tired, got to go to bed. It's Sunday, but they all come out, and it has made our community so connected, our neighborhood so connected. We have a farmer's market, and the farmer's market was boring after a while because it was the same vendors in the same place selling the same things, and so people stopped coming. So we have a pickup flag football match now. People of all ages play. We have artists showing kids how to paint and draw and selling their art. And I don't know who did it, but somebody dressed up as a jester before the season ended last year and showed up as a jester doing stuff for that. People loved it. And now they're coming out of Sherwood Park, 100,000 people where I live, 15 minutes to come to Ardrossan to that farmer's market. There's so many things you can do. We have sports. Look, I must be the only kid in Alberta that never played hockey. I didn't. I don't skate very well. It was embarrassing because I had to feed the cows. So like my dad was like, you have all your teeth and someone's got to feed the cows, so no hockey. My brother got to play because I was still there feeding cows, but I never got to play hockey. My wife's Portuguese, our kids play soccer. I am still nervous about walking into a rink. Because when I was in high school to pick up my brother who was playing hockey, they all looked at me like, yeah, you're the kid from the other town that doesn't play hockey. And I was pretty sure they were going to beat me up, made me nervous. I know, it happened to me a lot when I was a kid. It's okay. Don't look too worried, I survived it all. But you know what? There's a lot of people that can't afford to play hockey all the time or pay all the expenses that go with hockey or don't want to commit to going to play hockey every Tuesday and Thursday every single week for a month. But they would love to play pickup hockey. But lots of times we don't have something like that. So we always suggest, you want to start to break down barriers, have pickup sports. We've got green grass that no one's using in many parks. Have a pickup soccer game. Put the brochure in everyone who's a newcomer, an immigrant, someone who's never played the sport before, and invite them. Really welcome them to come. And then you can create a community neighborhood feel. And let me tell you something. Young people, I said before, don't want subdivisions. They want to be in a real neighborhood. They want to live in a real community. And if you don't believe me, just reflect back about the pandemic and what happened. Half the people I know went to their lake cottage to get out of the urban center of the city. They went to their parents' place. They went somewhere where they felt safe. They don't want to go back. It's why businesses, main streets and cities, downtowns and cities have 30-40% vacancy rates. Why lots of cities are struggling with deflating housing costs, because people left LA, they left San Francisco, they moved to Des Moines and Boise and Lancaster, Pennsylvania and Zionsville, Indiana. They're moving to places where they can get an authentic community feel. Ta-da! Welcome to Virden. Number 11, diversity, both the growth and the celebration. It is incredibly important to have diversity. There's so many ways to do it. Number 1, be open-minded to new ideas. I grew up on a farm. I grew up agriculture all the way. And I remember my dad taking me to the famous coffee shop, the place where nothing positive was ever said and very little truth is ever spread. You remember that? And he took me there, and I sat there and I listened. And I watched 2 young farmers that were in their mid-20s come in and sit down to talk to the Senate, right? Because they were all the smart farmers who were going to tell them what to do. So we went to the Senate, and they said, we're going to grow mint and canary seed in Alberta. And I'll never forget, my dad was one of them. They looked at them and laughed and said, "You idiots are going to go broke. We have cattle, we have canola, and we have wheat." And that was that, and they left. Except thanks to them, now 30 years later, 40 years later, Alberta is the #1 producer of mint in Canada, and it started right there. And canary seed is also a good cash crop that's also continued to grow every year. You see, if you're not open-minded about some new ideas just from local people, how you can stagnate the change that you need, and yet you can attract, just like Strathmore did with that autonomous vehicle. Not Strathmore. Beaumont, sorry. Got too many communities in my head. Beaumont did with that autonomous vehicle. You can send a message about what you're open to, and that's the whole point to this. There are communities that have grown by attracting diverse cultures, different people of different color skin, people of different walks of life. They don't feel welcome, then let me tell you something, they're not going to come. And here's the big crux. All of our kids have been on the internet. Every single one of them. If they want to know how to build a shelf, they don't Google how to build a shelf, they YouTube how to build a shelf. If they're going on a trip, because I'm taking my wife and kids back to Portugal, I'm like, great, we got to figure out where we're going to go, because I haven't been there since they're really little. It's been a long time. And so we're going to go over to Portugal this summer for a few weeks. And I said to my boys, we got to figure out where to go. You think they Googled it? No. They went on YouTube, where they instantly found people who had traveled around Portugal and said all the great places to go with videos and pictures. These kids from this generation have already seen the world, now they want to go experience it. And if your community doesn't offer diversity in food, in culture, in languages, then they'll go find some place that does. Not every generation still wants to eat at the Western Chinese cuisine restaurant in town. They want diversity. They want choice. And it's not that they've never experienced it. The problem is that they've seen it already and they know it's out there. And so they'll go find it. And so there are communities, small communities, attracting unique populations with unique ideas and doing unique things, and that's attracting a lot of, well, young people, but older people too. I was in Arizona. I was doing some research in Phoenix to see, I was interviewing semi-retirees and seniors to see what they were interested in. And so I went out to the suburbs, and they all said the same thing. They wanted it to be quiet, they wanted it to be hot, they wanted low taxes and a golf course down the street. But I went downtown, and I didn't realize there's a huge seniors population there, right by the hockey arena, right by the baseball stadium. Like, they're all around there in condos. And so I got a bunch of them together and interviewed them. And I said, what makes you guys here and not out there? And one of the ladies looked at me and she said, out there are a bunch of people waiting to die. I'm young, I want to be where the action is. And then she smacked me on the ass and gave me her phone number. That is not a joke. It's funny, but not a joke. And she did. She texted me later. So look, everyone is looking for exciting things to do. And your community, by trying to capitalize on some of this, could do amazing things. Number 12, marketing and communication. You know how many communities are the best kept secret in the world? Yours is no exception. I mean, being here, there are so many things to celebrate about this community, but nobody knows about it because nobody's talking about it. You've got to communicate and market your community. That is one that most communities are missing. I mean, there's still no budget for marketing your own community and then wondering why businesses and the industries and people aren't coming. If you're the best kept secret, it won't be forever. You won't exist for very long. And there are powerful ways to do it. Now, I always recommend there are two things that need to be done, and this is in prelude to the strategic plan because there's a marketing strategy at the end of that. One, you've got to market and communicate to who you want to attract. I don't mean a Facebook message for $8,000 that goes out to the whole world. No one's going to see it. But when you decide who your community is going to be, the person, the family, the business, the industry you're going to attract, it is really easy to target market that particular person or that family and then bring them in. But you need to make sure that it's targeted. The second side of this that everyone forgets is that half of your marketing needs to be done to people in your community, because they're the ones that are going to tell the story about your community. I mean, if the province of Manitoba came along and offered you $1 million to market Virden, and everyone in this room said, Virden's horrible. It sucks. The taxes are too high. There's nothing to do here. The housing is too expensive. There's no businesses here. The main street's ugly. The $1 million, you might as well put it into Pepsi. Because it won't do a damn bit of good if everyone in this community is running this place down. But if everyone in this community is saying, have you seen what we're talking about doing? The investment we're making that are going to attract new families, attract new businesses, potentially attract new industries because of the partnerships we're working on, because of all the investments we're making that are strategic. We're going to grow our economy. We're going to grow our tax base. We're going to grow the pie. The province could offer you $1 million, and I recommend you spend it on something else because you won't need it. Your story and what you tell is the one that's going to reverberate out there through the province and across North America. And so marketing strategies have to communicate externally to who you're trying to attract, but also internally. And I can't emphasize this enough. If you guys run this town down, no one can fix it. You can't look at town council or county council, the RM, administration, the businesses on Main Street. If you're negative, then that's going to be the message. You can't undo that damage until you shut up and become positive. And if you're positive long enough, that will become the story, and you'll be surprised at how many people live up to it, how much it becomes true. And the last one, own it. That's it. Own it. Every community that I've seen that's successful decides we're going to do something about this. So you need to own it. I mean, literally, you've heard me say this before, but you have to, and you have to, and you have to. Because if you're waiting for an elected body like the council to do it, there's only 7 of you. How are you supposed to do all of it, right? Administration, is it supposed to just be them that does it? You need volunteers in your community, you need healthcare, you need education, you need your business community, and you need your municipal corporation all working together to make this happen. You need to own it. If you don't own it, no one else is going to do it for you. I promise you, no one else is going to do it for you. Being in provincial politics, I know the politicians will show up and say, I'll take care of this. They won't. They can't, because no one can make your community more successful than you and the work you do for it. So own it. All right? that is, I know I'm still working on it. I know it's a lot of overlap with 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. It's a work in progress, so bear with me. All right, so some pathways to success. Now, here is the strategic plan for your, first the engagement. I have to explain to you how we do this. I did not do a survey. I do not do polls for public engagement, because this is a strategy for the community going forward. This is incredibly complex and deep. There are so many factors that need to come together. Otherwise, if I just do a survey, it kind of becomes a list of all the potholes that need to be fixed and which new recreation facilities you like to get. That's not a strategy, that's a wish list. Also, and I don't mean this to be offensive, when you ask people their opinions, it can be equally challenging. You can get some really bad decisions. There's 3 examples of why I don't use polls. In Great Britain, they created a new warship. They built one, and they were going to name it. Any of you hear this story? They decided to do it via the internet, let people vote. So the boat is now called Bodie McBoatface. It's a war vessel called Bodie McBoatface, because sometimes people are just funny and not serious. You also have an example like the Cleveland Browns. I'm a Green Bay Packers fan with football. Anybody like the Cleveland Browns? Okay. Just for the record, when Cleveland was going to rename itself, they had a bunch of things like the Panthers, which didn't exist yet. They had powerful names, animal names. They had things like the Vipers was #1 on the list. And they put it out to the public to get their opinion. And the public said, those are offensive, those are mean. I don't like vipers, that's a snake. My son was bit by a snake. I don't like the Panthers because that was an old team that we had in high school that went defunct. Everyone found a reason not to like anything. On the list was Brown. Brown was the head coach for Cleveland when they first started. So they picked Brown because it was the least offensive. Like, there's an article, you can look it up, called The Death of Inspiration, the story of the Cleveland Browns. Sometimes when you ask people, it's not necessarily a good thing. So we specifically go and interview folks. We usually start with a small list. I do some scanning of social media, and as much as some of you think you're private on social media, you're not. It's easy to find people, so I find people based on comments. People are angry, people are happy. I scan newspaper articles, and I start to do interviews. Then I ask those people to give me some other people. And yes, I ask them for their friends, but I also ask them for people they think would have the opposite opinion. And we went through and did 31 individual, in-depth interviews. We had 3 focus groups, and then there's, Heather thinks it's 70 to 80 people we talked to on the street, at events, in businesses. There weren't full-fledged interviews, but we did glean information and perspective on the community. We would have done even more, except because of the pandemic. We've been working on this so long, and it was so hard to get together with people. So we had to do other Zoom interviews as well. And just some highlights that came out of there. Comments like downtown revitalization discussions that don't materialize into action are frustrating. Lack of population and business growth, while other comparable communities up and down Highway 1 blossom and bloom. People named communities where they said, how come they're doing well and we're not doing as well? Not that we're doing horrible, just other ones are taking advantage. What are we doing wrong? Lack of coordination with adjacent municipalities was hampering economic growth. And it wasn't that the municipalities don't get along, but there was a lot of comments that, you know what, I've seen other jurisdictions that are leveraging their partnership and doing amazing things. Could we do more? Why aren't we doing more? And actually, you know what, that was also within the municipality, between organizations. A lack of clarity and consistency to development and investment policies and processes across the region. So there was sort of red tape stuff. You know, it was difficult to invest. There's too many different forms to fill out, stuff like that. Sometimes land use policies, sometimes the fact that the municipalities don't coordinate, so there's double duty in filling out paperwork. And there was a lot of, which I found very interesting, and I made note of it, council lacks focus and decisiveness and micromanages daily affairs. This one is indicative of a council without a strategic plan, but this will go away because now they have a strategic plan, so that's why I highlighted it for you. It's very common in communities that don't have a plan. So there are general comments like that. There's not a lot of anger in this community. There's a little more apathy than we're used to seeing, but there's a lot of desire from those that aren't apathetic to see something happen and be open to change. So, here is your strategic plan. Now, I am going to highlight a couple things for you before we get into this, just so you know how we do things. Most communities have a strategic plan that is 30 pages long, or 40 pages long, or 50 pages long, and it's full of wonderful pictures and great graphics, and it goes on, and everyone's happy when it's done, and then it goes on a shelf, and then everyone, and it'll say something like, engage youth. Yay. And then after 4 years, when they pull it back and they look through, they're going, well, who engaged youth? And everyone looks like, oh, I thought you were doing that. I thought you were doing that. And then you ask them, well, what was that supposed to mean anyway? What are you going to do about it? What action goes with it? And they go, I don't know. I don't know how to engage youth. So we don't do that. Sorry, losing my voice for a second. We focus on concrete milestones and actions that go along so that you can see what we're doing. So you guys can take the strategic plan home, especially there's the operational version with some things to do, and then there's this one. You can actually look on the list on the back. You can check these things off as they're being done so you can see progress on the strategic plan. And then announcements can be made indicating what goes on there. We also make sure that our vision is for this community and what it wants to achieve. Too many communities have a vision statement that says the best place to work, live, and raise a family, or we're going to make ourselves an amazing whole community. You can take that vision statement and put it in another strategic plan for another community and nobody will know the difference. If that's the case, then what value is it? And the vision statement is meant for everyone. Every single organization in this community, oh, thank you very much. Every single organization in this community could adopt the vision statement and make it exactly the same vision statement in their organization, whether they're volunteers or not, a volunteer organization. The mission statement is meant to be what the municipal corporation is going to do to make that vision statement come true. Too many communities, they have a vision statement, and you could switch them around and nobody would know the difference. It's just another rephrasing of the same thing. That's not effective. The mission is what the municipality is going to do to make the vision come true. And finally, which is the beginning, then there's values. Sorry, second last thing. You'll see we have in there what we value most. It's not on that one. It's on this one. What we value most. The reason why we do that is because there are so many consultants that they go through this process about what their values are, and they actually put up a PowerPoint presentation and list 30 values, and they have council vote, and then they take the ones that got the highest vote. And they always wind up with the same first three. Accountability. Now this is a strategy. Why do you have to say you're going to be accountable in a strategy? You are already going to be accountable. They're elected officials. If they're not accountable, you vote them out of office. They don't have to say they're accountable. They should be. Next up, transparency. Now, I hate that one too, because anyone who's ever been in government knows that sometimes you can't tell everybody everything. If a company is showing up here in Virden or in the RM and is going to locate, they'll share proprietary information, you'll be discussing taxes, they can't tell you everything. And the second they can't tell you everything, they're not transparent. And there are legitimate reasons why they can't tell you everything. So, why say that? And the third one, which drives me nuts, is integrity. Every municipality puts in the what we value with integrity. Why do you have to say that? My grandpa, just to give you a context, used to look at me and go, anyone who tells you they're not a liar is a liar. Not because we're all liars, but because of a thing called projection bias. You and I can know each other our entire lives from the day we were born, but I will only ever know what you show me. The only person I really know is who's in here. And so, liars have a tendency to say, I'm not a liar. And they say that to everybody because they think you're all liars, and the best way to convince you otherwise is to tell you you're not a liar. It's the same reason why honest people get taken advantage of. I'm an honest person. I assume you're all honest. I know that's what I know about me. I assume you're all honest people too. And then we get taken advantage of by one of the liars. So if someone says they have integrity, odds are they don't. Because people who have integrity don't have to constantly tell you that. So accountability, transparency, and integrity, I hate those. So we pick what you value most. Because no matter what size of municipality you have a limited budget, limited resources, limited people, limited staff. You have to pick what you're going to invest in. And I know you're going to look at this list and some of you are going to go, but my thing that I wanted isn't in there. You can't have everything. Otherwise, it's a laundry list and they'll go broke. And it's funny because people will say, I want my thing in there, plus I want fiscal responsibility. But you better get my thing done. It's crazy. So, you'll see those, and the last thing is the story, which is the first thing we discussed. Because if you can't tell your story in a concise manner, then you don't know what you're selling. You don't know who you're becoming. You don't know what any of this is for. And yet, I was just telling the story about a community in Saskatchewan. I went and looked at their story when we were writing their strategic plan. It was 3 pages, and it read like it was Fort McMurray, maybe. Ever been there? Everything was about the plumbing size and the water size and the land values. You would think it was a work camp because obviously no one lived there and they had nothing to celebrate about living there. And it turned out that was their biggest issue. They treated it like a work camp instead of a quality of life. But that is changing for them as they redesign their downtown. I can let you know who they are if you want. And so you need to have the story. So that's what we're going to go through. And it's only on 2 pages. My 2 pages, and then it's been broken up into a different format on the other slide you have. Okay? So, I'm going to read this to you. Gotta ditch the glasses. And I'm reading this to you because it's important to read it a certain way. So, if you want, you're welcome to close your eyes and listen. This paragraph is who you were, the next one is who you are, and the last one is who you are becoming. In 1883, the community of Gopher Creek, created by settlers from Great Britain and Eastern Canada, looking for opportunity and a better life, became Virden, and an important node on the national rail system. The population swelled as the brick and flour industries grew in tandem with agriculture. The community became the hub of transportation, processing, and services for the greater region. Growth in population and the economy continued with investments in Commonwealth Air Training Combat School during World War II, and the discovery of significant oil deposits in 51 and 53. I gotta get a wrist thing for this, sorry. Who you are. Virden is located literally at the center of it all. Located on the Trans-Canada Highway and the Cross-Canada CPR line, Virden is also on Highway 83, which bisects the entire continent, running over 3,000 kilometers straight south to the Gulf of Mexico. We are centered between 2 provincial capitals and at the virtual center of the nation's east and west coasts. Add to that our diverse natural resources, thriving agricultural industries, abundant water, skilled workforce, and affordable quality lifestyle opportunities, and you can see why Virden continues to draw new and diverse families, business, and industries to the region. We will continue our focus on growing our thriving business community and attracting new industry while still maintaining the affordability and quality of life aspects our families appreciate. Leveraging stronger partnerships with our neighboring municipalities and Indigenous communities will strengthen the entire region, while the new revitalization of our downtown core with fresh aesthetics, socialization, cultural events, businesses, and housing will ensure our community remains the central living space of the greater region. Whether you are a new business, a family, a professional, or an industry looking for the best place to invest, you will find we are the community that puts you at the center of it all. I love it. I have to confess, every time I read it, I got told, "Oh, you have a radio voice." It's good. So the first paragraph tells you who you were, the second one tells you who you are, the third one tells you where you're going. And I explain this to everyone. Good marketing means you have to be able to tell people all that in a 5-story elevator ride. And yet most stories that you find on websites and with communities try and tell everything. It's not a history book, it's the story that you're trying to market and communicate. I mean, no one's going to sit there for 45 minutes to listen to you about why Virden's a great place to be. But You may catch them in an elevator for 4 flights and be able to sell that pitch. And then it becomes so concise to know what you're doing and why, who you're becoming. Next up, your vision: a welcoming community serving as a hub for commerce, connectivity, and robust social and cultural experiences that drive economic vitality throughout the region. It's captured in that story, and this succinctly is the vision for the community. The mission for the municipality, how the municipal corporation is going to make that vision comes true: intentionally investing in infrastructure and marketing as catalysts for socialization, innovation, business growth, and a culture of entrepreneurship. There's 4 pillars there, right? And those 4 pillars are represented in your values. These are the what you value most: business growth and prosperity. And people say that, but if you don't define what it means, then everyone will have a different impression. So in this case, what the council and administration meant was our business community and our entrepreneurs thrive thanks to tactical investments that bring people to our community to socialize, work, invest, do business, and to live. The second value: communications improvement. Municipality recognized they wanted to improve communication. Specifically, our engaged citizenry not only supports and participates in, but takes ownership in the diverse community initiatives that grow our population, our economic prosperity, and our quality of life. It's very important. They want to make sure you guys are participants and owners in this. Number 4, socialization. They identify that as a big value they want to grow and improve. Events and placemaking around the community and in the downtown core generate attention about our quality of life and economic opportunities, which contributes to our continued population and business growth. So specifically leveraging socialization to draw people in. And lastly, quality of services. Our service and social amenities support the type of quality of life people are craving as they seek real communities that produce connections to others, support healthy living, and create opportunities for security and prosperity. You have no idea how long it took to get this down to those many words. It takes a lot of work for economies to get down to a short number of words. And then these are under those 4 pillars are the actions. So the milestones: area of focus, develop a regional economic development strategy with particular projects, initiatives, and actions that will support those. So you can see these yourself on the document. I don't want to go over them line by line, but identify small business and retail growth opportunities, explore and plan infrastructure needs for future growth, and plan and advocate for housing diversity. That falls under business growth and prosperity. And you can see the actions. Again, you will be able to put this up on your fridge and check it off when they're done the housing needs assessment. And they'll make an announcement when they're done the housing needs assessment, so you can see they're making progress on this. Under communication improvement, continue to actively partner and communicate with our municipalities, the neighboring ones. Focus on proactive engagement and communication with residents, which they identified as something they want to improve. Ensure active communication with the business community, building connections. And so you can see they want to have regular business agenda-free luncheons just to continue to hear from them. Because when you have an agenda, people talk about the agenda, not about what's on their mind. And even an annual business summit, which could be bringing the businesses together to celebrate their contributions, to celebrate their achievements, or even to market new business opportunities in this community. Or maybe all 3. Good governance training also. Initiate training on appropriate roles and responsibilities with good governance. We were just in another municipality, and governance is a big issue these days. Everyone needs to work on improving it. And frankly, that last community we just did this in, they offered also up to the Chamber of Commerce, to the Downtown Business Association, to the, I forget what it was called. They had multiple organizations that all needed good governance training, so they were expanding it. So those are in the areas of communication improvement. Next up, socialization, development of a vibrant downtown. So implementing the downtown revitalization plan with a goal to complete it by 2026. Council has talked about committing a budget every single year to downtown revitalization, and then administration will be able to work through that and figure out exactly what needs to be done with the budget available and capitalize on the best opportunities. Create a storefront improvement grant, which is important. The aesthetics, the Main Street appearance is incredibly important. Establish a downtown brand and encourage art. Again, paint, twinkle lights, trees. Can I just say, you know, when I went through this community, the multiple times doing an assessment, you have a beautiful community, okay? But did somebody come downtown 30 years ago and rip out all the trees and just decide downtown didn't need any trees? It's weird. Because you have beautiful trees up and down every single street except the downtown core, and yet that's a great way to improve aesthetics. And so a downtown brand that's unique for marketing, and then investigate an investment location incentive program for downtown businesses. A lot of communities are doing this to encourage new businesses to come downtown. Sometimes it involves entrepreneurship and home-based businesses to bring them down to the core. Because if your downtown dies, so does your community. It's just that straightforward. You need a robust downtown. And then, of course, increase downtown community, year-round events, winter, spring, fall, not just the summer and mosquito season. Encourage and support stakeholders to create community ownership for events, more partnerships, and more year-round events, so that because everyone who's looking for a new place to live right now, and that's all over North America, are looking for places that have 4-season events. And the last one, quality services. Recognize the value of our recreation amenities. You guys have some amazing amenities. Create a recreation master plan to survey and assess current and future recreation needs, so you know what you're building and why and when it's going to be built. And also produce the asset and inventory list and review with stakeholders. And then create safe connections through our community, active transportation trails development. Trails is so core to connecting communities together, and work with the Scallion Creek community and other stakeholders to extend and improve walkability in the community. Because walkability is king. In fact, there were several surveys that they put together around North America, and the number one desire was a place to live in a downtown core with social activities. Number 2 was walking trails, and then it got into healthcare and education, which I found amazing, actually, and I do this for a living. That's how important these things are. And now the marketing. The goal of the marketing strategy that we created, which you see on the next few slides, is to increase the population, to stay relevant, be seen, to draw awareness, and to be innovative about what's happening in this community, to showcase your local talent and its qualities. We don't showcase our local talent enough. To create community ownership, that's the internal marketing. Increased attention and desire. Showcase talent and strength, allow for healthy competition, consistent touch points and messaging, so a consistent brand, because if you brand yourself different all the time, nothing will change. Could you imagine if Apple changed their logo every few years? It's been that way for, what, 50 years now? It's nuanced, but they have a consistent brand. So consistent, in fact, is Apple's brand that they haven't been innovative in 10 years, and people still think they're the most innovative brand on the market. Right? When was the last time they changed an iPhone? As far as I can tell, they just get heavier and bigger, and a lot more expensive. I switched to Google. I'm not getting paid for that. And increase brand awareness about who you are, and then stronger and more deliberate messaging and communication. So these are the first 4 goals. Create a consistent brand, create photo-branded visual bank for social media, so that your website has a consistent brand, your social media has a consistent brand, other people can maintain that brand. Even, this is Heather's area of expertise, the pictures even need to have a consistent theme, a consistent color, so that it becomes representative of who you are. And if you want to see what that means, I'm not the expert on this. You can look at our Instagram account, 13 Ways, and look at all the pictures, and it's deliberately created to create a color palette, and successful Instagram accounts do that. So a Did You Know series, so that you can stop being one of the best kept secrets in Manitoba and probably North America, so that you can get some of that information and messaging out. And a video series, because like I said, when younger people want to build a shelf, they don't go Google it, they go on YouTube. You need a video series to sell yourself, to talk about who you are, or no one's going to find you because they're not looking where you're marketing. The next one, a downtown identity, which I mentioned, so that it becomes a desired space to have business and to go down. You want a place where everyone says, hey, let's go see what's happening downtown. Used to be like that when I was a kid. in my hometown. It's not in most communities now, and it needs to be. You need more downtown art and more events. This is focused on your downtown. And quality of life, you're also going to market that. So to external residents about how amazing this community is. Recruitment strategy, so you can develop a business and retail gap analysis. Like I said, I guarantee you if I asked any of you which is the first business you think should come to this community, most of you can't answer. But you can do an analysis of your downtown and find out what it is. What do you think the #1 business you guys need here is? A chiropractor. Said people twitching in their seats saying, "Are you done? I gotta stand up." That was on the list. The #1 thing was a coffee shop open consistently. Yeah. But you know what? Most of us don't think about those things, but when you go somewhere else, you do that. So that was doing the gap. Did I move it again? No. Oh, recruitment strategy. So you can do a gap analysis for what kind of businesses you need, and then a potential incubator, which could also be a co-working space, to help transition those home-based businesses and small businesses onto Main Street, and probably, potentially, attract some new folks that are looking for co-working space. Co-working space is huge. I did a survey of CEOs of companies in the capital region in Edmonton. And I asked them, what are you going to do when the pandemic's over, now that you've closed your office? And they all said the same thing. They all said productivity went up because people are actually hard workers, and when they got home, they worked more hours than we paid them for, and they got stuff done because there were no distractions. But the problem we have is that there's no creativity because you can't get the team together, and there's no team building because you're all working from home. So 52% of them, 51% of them, just over half, said we want to use co-working space when we come back. We want to be able to pull the team together for creativity and team building, but also get the productivity of sending them home. So we need a co-working space we can use a couple of days a week or a couple of days a month. Sounds good. I asked the other 48%, and they said, I don't know what you mean. So I explained the idea about the co-working space, and they said, well, we'll get on that. So like 100% of them were going to use a co-working space so they could cut their overhead, improve team building, but also get all the productivity they need. So an incubator, co-working space, that's what we recommend. And that's the strategic plan. I know, I'm out of breath too. I'm breathless for different reasons than you guys, but so do you have any, I'm happy to answer any questions about the process, how we got to this, what it means specifically in any of those. But again, I remind you, there's the 2-pager, and then there's the one that's written on the broadsheet. Same idea, the story, clear vision, a concise mission for the municipality, what you value most, and then the milestones and actions, those things you're going to do, and know that you've got them done so that you can make progress. That's what we've got.
What did the folks in Edmonton do with that 50% of space that won't be there?
Oh, the empty space downtown? That's a good question. They still have it. Edmonton currently has, 31% vacancy rates, the last stat that I saw. And so what they're actually looking at doing is converting some office space to condominiums, to residential. There's a couple of restaurants going on 3rd floors, recreation stuff. They're making it, they're integrating, which I've said we should do for a long time, where you live, where you work, where the services are, where you shop, the amenities. Like this whole building the subdivisions and then keeping the businesses downtown, it's created this donut effect in downtown cores and big cities. And most of our towns say, oh yeah, we're not doing that. Are we? Maybe we're just doing it slower. We need to bring back socialization like these cities are learning. Scariest event I ever had in my life, I went to speak in Philadelphia. And there were a couple of us that went. Sorry, I know I tell too many stories, but a couple of us that went, we were right down in the core. And I didn't have to speak till the next day, so this other couple, we were like, what do you guys want to do? They said, let's get a bottle of wine. So George and I went out to get a bottle of wine. We left the hotel and went into main downtown Philadelphia, office towers everywhere, and couldn't find anything. So we went back to the hotel and said, where is a liquor store? And he said, oh, I think it's down there about 3 blocks. So away we went again, right into the downtown core. Well, it went from 5 o'clock to like 5:20. And it went, I thought everyone in Philadelphia had been abducted. It was empty. It was dead empty. And then I was walking down the street with George because now we were lost and we couldn't find the liquor store. And we got 3 blocks away, and this guy came around the corner, a massive guy dressed in like gang fatigues, who looked at me. George was like 70 years old. And so he looked at me like, you're dead. And I looked at George, and George was like, where is that liquor store? So I was like, we gotta get out of here. And that guy bumped me and turned around and then looked at me like, get off my street. Because at 5 o'clock, everyone vacated and there was nothing left because it was only office towers. And we've gotta stop. Or then we wonder why, if our downtowns become vacant, no one's there after 5 o'clock, why that's where the drug deals happen. That's why where the looting happens. That's where the spray painting happens. That's where the devastation happens. We need that downtown beating heart and soul of the community to come alive again. And that makes communities come alive again. Sorry, that was a very long answer to a quick question. Everyone's good? Yes?
Who's doing all this then? Like, who, you know, so now you've got the plan, so now who's doing it?
Well,
Where do you go from here?
Yes, this is the municipal corporation's plan. The vision we always create so it can be shared with any other organization, but this is the municipal corporation's list of actions, milestones to know make progress, marketing strategy, and the story they're going to sell. They're going to need your help, of course. They're going to need your moral support. They're going to need you to help share the story, but this is for the municipal corporation to implement, your council and administration.
I guess everybody's happy with Virden, huh?
Yes.
I have a question regarding any investment. Because clearly this would take investment, such as you mentioned, coffee shop needed. Would people maybe be a bit shy now regarding investment, especially with the recent last 2 years, how many businesses have been destroyed and how much money that takes out of the community? How many jobs have been lost, which eventually, essentially then creates shyness to start up again?
Yeah, the last 2 years of the pandemic have caused strains on businesses, people to lose businesses, people lose their jobs, and so will they be shy about investing?
And they won't have the options, and what will be done about it? Because can you imagine just over the last 2 years how many restaurants have been gone because they were forced to shut down? Many other businesses were forced to shut down. People have been fired. The eyes being denied. There's hundreds of thousands in one community of wages gone out of the community. So how is there a way to, how are we able to ensure people, yes, your investment is safe?
Well, I don't think the municipality or the province or the federal government ensure anybody that their investment is safe. As a personal entrepreneur, I know the risks that go with the investments. If I was going to say anything, it would probably be that I adhere to the Warren Buffett philosophy, and I encourage you guys to adhere to it too. When people are afraid, be bold. When people are bold, be afraid. I think right now, coming out of this pandemic, is the perfect time to capitalize on this. We've seen record numbers of people move to smaller communities, and I don't see the trend ending. It may wane a little bit, but I see this as a rampant opportunity. But no matter what happened in the past, the great thing about humans is that we rebuild and we regrow. So whatever happened the last 2 years, I know it's horrible. Hell, I came really close. There were no speaking events and no one wanted to do any consulting because, and I held on by the skin of my teeth, took out another loan, didn't lay anybody off, because I knew that coming out of this pandemic, there's going to be more work to help communities find that pathway forward than has ever been before, and I've been right. So I know it can be scary. If you're scared, maybe it's not for you. But I suggest that there is ample opportunity in every single community, and there are already communities that in the last few months have started to turn things around and have become the bastion to draw people in who want to invest, who are looking for quality of life. If every community did this, I have people ask me this all the time, if every community did this, then there would be too much competition. Again, I quote my grandpa, when you have a good idea and something that's going to turn things around, don't be scared of someone stealing it. You'll have to shove it down their throats if it's a good idea. Just go do it. And I think, out of all the communities I worked in, and I mean dozens and dozens and dozens, I would suggest that Virden is in the top 3 of communities with all the potential sitting there already. It just takes a little investment to get it off the ground. Its location, its downtown already has the aesthetics starting to go for it. You've got a great downtown core. You've got some history. I mean, I still think the theater connected to the train station, and then events that you can have. You've got beautiful neighborhoods with lots of robust, mature trees, and you've got this amazing community feel. I have never been to an event that had this big a turnout for a strategic plan. Most people go, I like you, Doug, but I'm not coming to sit for 2 hours to listen to a strategic. So you have everything going that can make sure your community is prosperous. That's what your council brought us in for, was to put up the plan in place that they can implement to make this happen.
Does the town have enough staff and administration to execute this on top of everything else there already?
This is brilliant. I couldn't have paid you to ask me that question and had it framed more brilliantly. Does the town have enough staff to implement this plan? Here's what you need to know. Most communities go through and do a strategic plan. This is incredibly ambitious, but not unachievable. When we went through and created this strategic plan, the next thing we did was sit down with all of the administration and go through what they needed to implement this and if it was possible. And so a lot of stuff was stripped out because no matter who you do it with, it becomes a wish list of everything you want to accomplish, and then everyone goes away and says, we have no money, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough time. So this meshes very well with the resources you have financially, with the people you have, and with the time you have. And we make sure, because otherwise, what's the point if you can't deliver on it? Now, it is the most robust. It's pushing the town to its limits with its capacity, but it's not impossible. But they're so excited about this. They were adamant they wanted to stay at that fringe limit and deliver on everything that they could.
We have an election this year.
Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna add something to that, because that's good. You guys do have an election coming up in a few months. I'm not saying you need to select all the same councillors. That's not my job. But my biggest fear, and we discussed this, my biggest fear is that if too much changes after the next election, all this plan dies. And you'll have a new council with new people who go hire new consultants to spend new money to do this over again. This is jives perfectly for what you need to do. It had bought-in from all those people that we interviewed. Administration says they're capable of doing it, and council's excited about it. So again, I'm not saying you have to vote for them all. You can choose whatever you want because it's your fate or your future. But I just want you to remember that if a bunch of people are running to say, oh, we're going to do something different, you haven't even had time to put this into effect. And take any company that's successful in the world. Again, I'll use Apple because I always do. Imagine if they hired a new board of directors and a new CAO every 4 years. You would have never heard of them because they had to have a long vision and work hard at it to make it happen. And for proof, Nashville, Tennessee finally, officially, publicly adapted the Music City slogan. They've had the Grand Ole Opry for 45 years, but if you surveyed the public, they said, we are not just about music, we're bigger than that. Except that's what drives their economy. But it took them 45 years to finally adopt and accept by the public the Music City mantra. That's their slogan. If you go reinvent yourself all the time, you'll never get anywhere. So I know you have an election coming up. If I were you, I would just say, these things need to be done. I don't care who's running or what you're doing, we need to get this stuff done. Because if you just spin your wheels and keep picking new people that are going to go after your pet project, then I don't know if anything's going to change. Yes.
So that brings me to the question, I know this isn't gonna happen overnight, will there be a time frame put in place?
This, right now, is a 4-year timeframe target. They want to accomplish, and because 2026 is the longest one for the downtown redesign, and that's the biggest investment. It takes the most time. But the target is a 4-year timeframe, so to finish this term in the next 4 years.
Do all 13?
No. The 13, yeah, the 13 was just to show you what other communities are doing. That strategic plan is theirs.
I'm wondering if the transient nature of the community that's been there for decades will be a bit of a roadblock here in getting the widespread community to buy into this. I look around the room, I see people who have long-term ties to the community in the audience tonight. Do you think that's a factor at all?
I've seen it in a factor, which is partly why I don't do polls and just general public engagement, because I can't sort long-term residents from people who are here for 2 years working, say, in the oil patch or in something else, and then they're gone. And the ones that are here and really not just here for a long time, in the past, but here to be here for a long time in the future, they're invested with their family, not the paycheck. They're the ones that you have to hold on to most. And so, I don't know, I think it's a lack of awareness that makes that an issue, but if you're aware that there is a transient population, which so many of our communities have, with oil and gas, people move to jobs all the time. Fort McMurray is one of our clients, and they have some of those challenges, a transient population. We've actually, a lot of communities work in have a transient population. Knowing that, it doesn't mean ignore them. It means make them want to stay here forever, for a long time. And if they don't, that's fine. But focus on the ones that want to be here for a long time. And I need to emphasize that again. I'm not saying to focus on the ones that have been here for a long time. Focus on the ones that want to be here for a long time. Because often you'll get outsiders that come in and say, hey, I'm new here, but I just bought this business, I'm going to raise my family, my kids started in school, we're building a new house over in the new subdivision, I want to be here for a long time. And you're like, no, you're new here. No. Measure them by how long they want to stay, not by how long they've been here. And there's a lot of people that have been here a long time, it's in every community, that say, hey, I've been here forever, my voice counts more than yours, you've been here for 2 years. Both are going to spend the rest of their life, and the new person actually can see a lot of value in the new investments and building the community they want to. And oftentimes people who've been here forever say, why would we spend money on that? This is dumb. We've been through this for 40 years and it's been up and down and this will never pay off. Well, those naysayers aren't very valuable either. Focus on the people that want to be here for a long time and are ready to build something, and the transients and even the folks that have been here a long time and don't want to build something will take care of themselves.
Hello?
Yes?
Good question. So my big question is, so now what? And maybe we need to hear from the town folks to let us know that, like, what can we expect to see in the next month, 3 months, 6 months, year? You know, we're here now, how can we help you? We need to know what you need us to do. And this has been wonderful information, but we've got to do something with it. So where are we going from here?
You want it? Yeah. The communication and the marketing will be the first part, and they on that this sheet, it does list some of the specifics. You're going to see a lot more communication, from the municipality about what those next steps are and what they need from you, and engagement. I've suggested to the mayor he should have a state of the town address every year, and the council should join too. You'll see stuff on there like a business summit, a volunteer summit. You'll see some of those activities, and those, instead of just press releases out to the paper, not that it's not valuable, it's very valuable, but also communicating at more public events every chance they get. So you'll see a lot of that go.
We're going to need to.
Yeah.
So
And-
that will also then prove to us that the town wants us to grow and prosper, right? Rather than it just.
Yeah, words actually are a great place to start, but then they're worthless if you don't do something. And so I know that this council and the administration were very adamant. Actually, they were the first ones that said, well, this strategic plan is ambitious, we better make sure that we can do it. Otherwise, people will be disappointed. And so I know that they've already started to work on the action plan and what they're going to do to bring it forward. You're going to hear a lot from them. And then, I know, after all of our conversations, they'll be telling you what you can do to help. So
collaboration and cooperation are going to be key.
yeah, correct. Collaboration and cooperation with the public, with members at large, with the business community, with volunteer associations, with neighboring municipalities, all going to be paramount.
How many municipalities is the town of Virden collaborating with on this? Are they collaborating with any in the area, which would be a great idea?
Are they currently collaborating?
Not that I'm aware of, but
Well,
communication is generally speaking lacking.
The RM and the town had a great supper meeting tonight. We thought, let's get.
We don't know about that, that's the thing. They may have that, but the public clearly, those are, you can tell by questioning, clearly that lacks. And in fact, I attended an RM meeting just the other night actually, and question and answers, not gonna happen.
No Q&A. Well, I didn't write their strategic plan, so you'll have to talk to them about having Q&A at the town meetings. But look, I can tell you this. This is the presentation of the plan. So if you guys all said, this is horrible, go back to the drawing board, I have to go back to the drawing board. They're going to be done if you guys are okay with this, and then they can move forward on the implementation. So, I mean, honestly, let's all be patient with each other, because the fact that they had an RM meeting right before this, had supper, or a meeting with the RM and had supper, and then haven't reported to you yet, let's give them a little time to get their sorted, right? Because that's the plan. They want to communicate with you, they want to collaborate with you, and they want this done, and it's going to take all of you helping. So they'll be in touch, I know. Do you guys want to add?
No, that's pretty much, you got her all.
We're missing the operational plan. So I asked the same question. I said, what now? Like, we have this plan, it looks good. We're missing the operational piece. So that's the next thing our administration needs to do, is to build the operational plan that's got timelines, that's got who's going to do it, how it's going to get rolled out effectively, so that we can communicate that to you guys to get you involved. Because we don't want to put on 4 events a year downtown. We want user groups to get involved and do that. So if the operational plan is the next piece, but tonight we're just presenting the ideas here of the strategic plan, if that helps.
Perfectly said.
Thanks, Whitney.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. Perfect.
Yeah, it's pretty much what Ricky said. If tonight you guys went, oh, and we did have to go back to the drawing board. There's no sense in us as administration devising our entire plan based on this, our works based on this. So now that we see, it looks like there is buy-in from the community likes this, we get to work.
Yep. Yes, sir. Yep.
From the crowd should be crowd wisdom. All I hear all the time, this certain kind of repetition of a culture that has not evolved. I always who's going to do it? No, who is going to participate? We don't have much of revenues from first settlers, but some people put up a barn. They couldn't do it by themselves. But other people said, well, I'll get together, and then we're not just going to have, we're going to have a party after. It's diverse, it implodes, and people get to meet, because you meet. The best test is to work with people, not just talking about it. So you have to participate. And there are many places that participate. Portland took off with participation, and they have their own beer, but I don't know, where's the beer of Virden? and other stuff, I mean, ginger ale and things, you know. I was here as a kid in early 1950s, just when the oil rigs started. I remember that and different things, and it's, people are not adventuresome now. You know, I know they were isolated from their farms and things, but the world is bigger and moves. But it's not for us at any of this age. We have to prepare for the ones that are coming, all these young people who are ready to replace us. And they want a level, they see stuff. And say, that's good, let's take this from here. A little bit of Portugal, a little bit of Italy, a little bit of France. They come and we had that. And it's, but when you should, no, we only got a style. That was a long time ago. Cultures have evolved, moved, and the more interesting and dynamic, then you go, but you participate in different ways.
Yep, I agree. Barn raising and we'll make beer in it. I'm 100%. One back there, yep.
Do you stay on consult with them for the next 4 years?
Sorry, I
Do
couldn't hear.
you consult then with the town for the next 4 years? Do you stay involved with them?
So, we're technically done. No one pays us anymore. When we're done, then we've done all this presentation, we've done all the work. But I keep reminding council, and they'll testify, and I'll keep pounding them. We follow up every few months to see how they're doing and how the progress is coming, because we measure our success by this community success that we work in. So I don't care. I told them after the next election, if you want, we'll come back. I'll do this presentation again for everybody again. I'll familiarize whoever's new in council with this again. If it's 3 years from now and you're like, we kind of got derailed, we need to refocus, could you help us? We'll be back again. I'm not a lawyer, I don't charge by the hour of the day, so I will be back for the next 4 years if they need me, and I'll always be on a Zoom or always on a call. So yes, because like I said, we measure our success by whether or not they're going to be successful.
Would it be possible for the councillors that are present tonight to introduce themselves?
Oh, that's a great idea. Councillors, come on up here and introduce yourselves. Thank you. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
Watch the court. They don't want to upstage you.
Maybe. It's not hard to do.
Where's Carl?
Okay, so we're missing Carl Machinsky. Oh, that's right. Grant is, but anyway, I'm Travis Penner, and I would like to just add a bit to what Doug said. Like this is not a town council plan. This is a town plan. We're really looking for a lot of help. To answer the question about when's it starting or what's our plan on this? Well, it's already started. It's taken us quite a bit of work to get this done. We've had several meetings today. We have one tomorrow. There's a budget process in the works right now, and all of this is all part of it. But there's a list, a to-do list that we got to check off, and I think everybody's quite interested in getting started.
I'm Terry Town, also councillor, second term, and if I don't get reelected, I will also hound administration about the plan and just be public so that it gets done, because I want to see it through.
I'm Whitney Baker. I'm a councillor as well, and I like to see things get done, so that's why I asked the question, what now? Like the plan's very nice, but I'm really looking forward to the operational plan that puts people and numbers and a timeline on things, because I don't want this to be a 20-year plan.
I'm Tina Williams, and I'm a second-term counselor. They already really said everything I needed to say. But there's a lot of you here tonight who seem very interested in town affairs, and I just want to remind you that in October we're having an election for town councilors.
And I'm the guy that keeps them all happy. My name is Murray Wright. I want to thank Doug for his presentation tonight. And yes, you're going to see more stuff in the paper, on Facebook, as to where we're going with this, how it's progressing, and how it's moving along. But just remember, we can't do this by ourselves. We can suggest it, we can pass resolutions, we can do all kinds of things. But we need your help. So when we come knocking and we ask for help, I don't want to hear, oh, I'm too busy. The young ones, I don't want to hear, well, what's it cost? How much of a check do you need? I want your input, and I want you there on the Saturday or in the park when we're doing something. I want to see you there helping. Because like Doug said, if we don't all work together, nothing's going to happen. You can sit back and bitch, anybody can do that. But the ones that can stand up, get out there and do something are the ones that are gonna help this community move ahead. Thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? One gentleman in the back. Yes, sir.
Do you find Virden to be more dysfunctional on the spectrum, or?
Virden dysfunctional is the question being asked.
You know what? I actually have to say that that's a myth. In all the people I talked to, a lot of people said, we don't work well together, our organizations won't partner together and stuff. But it's almost like you know the telephone experiment where you pass something down the line and it keeps changing. It's almost like it's a story that's been told for generations, but it was really hard to find examples. Now there's a couple. There are a couple of places where egos are affecting whether or not good progress is being made, and that's too bad, but that's not insurmountable. But if I had a spectrum from here really bad to here really good, I would put you guys like you guys are here in a pretty good place. I've seen a couple that are better than you. I've seen a lot that are worse, and I've seen some where you'd say, oh man, did we ever have our shit together? Because they're really, really, really bad. So no, I actually think you guys have nothing that's insurmountable. You just need a few people who realize it takes a whole community and it's not just about them, and pull together for the betterment of volunteers, for the betterment of education, for healthcare, for the downtown association, for businesses all coming together. And I think you'll recognize them if you watch, and I don't know, just pat them gracefully and say thank you. I think it's time someone else helped with that. But as on a dysfunctional rating, if 10 is really, really bad, I'd put you guys down to the 3. Like, you guys are good.
Any other questions?
3 is good. 5 is average, so you guys are, maybe I should have done it the other way. Like 1 is dysfunctional, 5 is average, 10 is exceptional. You guys are an 8. How's that? Okay, that's a better, okay, good. Yeah, and I will be checking in on you guys. I want you to succeed. I believe you have so much potential. You're just vibrating here. And I will continue to poke my nose around and be here if you need help for the next 4 years to come. Let's get it done.
Great, this year, nice round of applause. Thank you very much. So like I said, keep an eye on Facebook and the paper, and we will have information coming out to you every month, because this is something we can't stop. We have to keep this going. And we do have a good working relationship with the R&L Wallace Woodworth. They're a good bunch of people, and they want to help us get ahead as well, too. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Drive safe going home, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Have some cookies and refreshments, and you can stick around and make
There's refreshments over there against the wall. Enjoy something for you. Thank you.